AITA for refusing to drive my girlfriend anywhere, forcing her to stop her hobby? My 30M girlfriend, 30F, cannot drive. She did lessons over 3 years ago. Hates driving and refuses to drive. She never took her test, so she doesn't have a driver's license. During COVID, she decided to stop working, and I mentioned to her that it would be good for her to use that time to practice driving and do her test, since where we live there isn't a ton of public transport, and asked her to let me know when she wanted to practice driving. After 6 months where she never asked me to practice, I started pushing her to do some driving, and we started going. She would have a panic attack every time a car was behind her and had forgotten lots of rules of the road. She wasn't braking before getting to a roundabout, and whenever I said to her to brake she'd get angry. So I told her it'd be better to reach out to a professional and do more lessons, and offered to pay for it. She never did, and asking her about it would cause issues, so I stopped. When she started looking for a job, she had to accept the only job that was easy to reach with public transport. After getting the job, she told me she'd never drive, and I told her that was okay, but I would not be driving her places anymore because she had years to start driving and chose not to. She now registered for dance classes, which have been her hobby since forever. But the classes are 15 to 20 minutes away by car. I asked her how she was going to get there, and she said she'd need me to drive her. I refused to drive 15 to 20 minutes there and back and have to repeat that an hour later, 3 times a week. It screws up my evening, and I did it pre-COVID because I was under the impression it was temporary. But I will not be doing it forever. When I told her this, she said she didn't think I was serious about her driving, and that it was controlling to force her to drive when she didn't want to and when it made her anxious. And that it was even worse to force her to quit her hobby. There aren't any classes she can reach by public transport. I can understand anxiousness, but I've been driving her back and forth places for the 4 years we are together and cannot keep doing this. If I keep doing it, she has no incentive to drive. So, AITA? NTA. If she decides not to drive, she must also take the consequences. It's not your responsibility to get her everywhere she wants. She can still learn how to drive. If she doesn't want to, she won't be able to benefit from having a car. So either get another hobby or find another way to get there. NTA. I don't drive. I don't want to drive. I have no intention of changing that. And I don't rely on or expect other people to drive me. I walk, get buses, use trains and trams, sometimes use a taxi. And if I cannot access something in one of those ways, I don't go to it. If she suggested the two of you relocate to somewhere with good transport options and more things being within walking distance, would you consider it? NTA. Y'all got Uber where you live? She said that she does not want to drive. Cool. Leave her alone about it. You can drive when you two go places together. But yeah, you're not a shuttle service either. Maybe commit to taking her 1 day a week and she can figure out the other 2? And that it was controlling to force her to drive when she didn't want. So what does she call it when she wants to force you to drive when you don't want to? NTA. She doesn't want a partner. She wants a crutch. NTA. Controlling her? Not doing for someone isn't controlling them. She'd be controlling you, if anything, trying to guilt you into continuing to take your time to drive. For her. NTA. This isn't being controlling. This is being realistic. She needs to find alternative ways to manage her anxiety and this issue of hers that doesn't include demanding everyone do this for her at her whim and fancy. If she's going to manage her anxiety by relying on others to drive her, Then she has to find things that work for those people's schedules. Have you suggested she ask a classmate for a ride? I.e., I can give you $10 for a ride to and fro. NTA, seriously, buy her entitled ass a bicycle. Controlling to force her to drive, she says with no apparent sense of irony whatsoever. One of the ways people access freedom is through cars. Also, you're not forcing her to drive. You're simply refusing to be her doormat driver. She can bike, walk or run, Uber etc. NTA. NTA, you're her boyfriend, not her personal chauffeur. It's one thing to help out a person without a license every once in a while when they can normally reach everywhere by public transport. But having to drive to dance classes 3 times a week is not something she can expect you keep doing all your life. She doesn't want to get her license, so she has to deal with the consequences of not having one. NTA. I know she's frustrated and you may feel bad, but she cannot expect everyone else to be her chauffeurs for the rest of her life. She's an adult. She needs to learn how to do this for herself. Be that arranging her life around public transportation, getting Ubers, or arranging with those who are willing and available to give rides. Expecting everyone else to take her everywhere just isn't acceptable. NTA, time for her to invest in a bicycle. NTA, you are not her parent taking her to ballet class and driver's ed. She can do these things for herself, or pay for an Uber to get to them without burdening you. NTA, but you should probably consider if this is acceptable for you on the long term. Some people cannot and should not drive. She shouldn't have to drive if she doesn't feel safe doing so. You should stop pushing. But you shouldn't be expected to be her personal chauffeur. If she doesn't want to drive, that is fine. She needs to find other methods. If it is a 20 minutes drive, it's probably a 40 minutes bike ride. I have a few friends that don't drive, plus a blind aunt. They all know how to get around just fine with bikes, boards, and public transportation. It's nice for things like doctor's appointments or other things not in your routine to get a ride. In which case I'm assuming you're willing to give her a ride. But she needs to take some responsibility. IDK where you live. But there is probably Uber or a taxi. Or just learn to ride a bike properly. NTA. But don't push for her to drive. She shouldn't be on the road. Does she actually have a problem with anxiety? Because it may seem normal to want to drive. But if she actually has anxiety attacks, then it feels like a heart attack each time she gets behind the wheel. And that isn't safe for everyone else. That being said, sit her down, find out what makes her anxious and slowly work on it. Unpopular opinion maybe, but nah. I can't drive to save my life. And God knows I've tried. I took hours and hours of professional lessons on which I spent multiple thousands. I tried driving manual and automatic cars. I just can't drive. I have anxiety and ADHD, which probably both play a role in the situation. It isn't just laziness, and honestly it sucks. I really wish I could drive. I can't be independent unless I live in a city where I can use public transportation. Obviously, I empathize with her. However, I understand that you don't want to drive her around, even if it transpires that you kind of do that out of spite. But yeah, I can't really say that either of you are assholes. It's just an unfortunate situation. NTA. I don't drive due to anxiety. I'm not entitled to being chauffeured everywhere by my loved ones either. Public transit and ride shares exist. NTA. I don't drive because I have no choice. Mid-lessons my health deteriorated and I am still on meds, which would make me a danger to everyone due to drowsiness and pain issues as a result of my issues. I want to drive, but I can't physically. I use Uber to get to places and travel within the means of myself and anyone who does offer me a ride. Heck, pre-COVID I even collapsed at work and made my manager help me into an Uber to take to the nearest hospital to where my parents lived to make it easy for them to pick me up, rather than the one nearer to my workplace. Your girlfriend is incredibly selfish. Either she sees a therapist for her anxiety, or she chooses hobbies which are easy to travel to herself. Info. Is there some type of traumatic event in her past that triggers anxiety when she drives? Or just the act of driving itself? Edit. Just to clarify. Regardless, she can't expect you to drive her everywhere. That's the sacrifice she made when she decided not to learn. NTA. If she refuses to drive, she needs to find places to do her hobbies within walking distance or has transit options available. You've done this for 4 years. She can't expect you to be at her beck and call forever.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.